There are many different methods that you can use to run exploits for the PS4. Today, we are going to cover the 8 different methods that exist. Yeah, there's a total of 8. I'm going to rank them from worst to first. Along the way, I'm also going to cover some of the pros and some of the cons of each. Now, this is not a tutorial video. It's just to cover what benefits you get from some of these different methods and, of course, some of their negative points. This is going to be a while because we have a lot to cover. So just sit back, relax, maybe grab some snacks. Let's go ahead and kick that intro so we can get started. Hey guys, and welcome to the video. And here today, yes, we'll be covering all those different methods and the pros and the cons and whatnot. So what you're seeing now is the criteria that I used in order to rank these. And when people are thinking which one of these methods to use, or which one to try out, what to buy, or whatever, what you're seeing here is usually the things that carry the most weight. I will cover them in detail as we go through each method, but very quickly, I'm just going to run through them. A cost will count as a negative if I think you're going to have to buy something or are going to buy it just for the sole reason for running an exploit. The performance, stability, and storage is based on each method, so we'll cover that as we go along. Customizable means, does the method allow you to use whatever exploit you want or customize your own? We will rank the method on a difficulty scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the most difficult, of course. User guide method, that just means if your PS4 has never been exploited before, to run that exploit the first time, you'll have to go through the PS4's user guide, as more than likely the PS4 browser is not enabled. Once you do that though, and you enable the PS4 browser, from that point on, your life will be a lot easier and you can pretty much run any exploit on this list once that browser has been activated. And truly offline means as long as the exploit doesn't require your PS4 to go into the internet for anything, it's considered offline. Even if it's a home network connection, as long as it just needs the connection to stay within your home network and it doesn't need to go outside for anything, it's considered offline. 7 of the 8 things will work offline on this list. So let's go ahead and let's get started with our last place finisher at number 8. Last place is the Raspberry Pi. Shouldn't be a surprise, and I'll tell you why here in a minute. First, let's look over the pros. In terms of, just running the exploit, the performance is there. Definitely the storage is there because you'll be using your own SD card. As long as you set up everything properly, it's stable, it's reliable. You can choose whatever exploit you want or customize your own. It's fairly small. It leaves a footprint the size of maybe like a credit card behind. And of course, you can run it offline just fine because your PS4 will connect to it through your home network, but you don't need to go out into the internet for anything. The problem with the Raspberry Pi begins and ends really with its learning curve. It's steep. You need to know Linux and be familiar with the distros and Python and all that stuff like the back of your hand. If you don't, right there, you should stay clear away from it. I'm not even going to rank the ease of use because on a scale of 1 to 10, this is a 15. Again, stay far away from it if you're not familiar with that stuff. Add to that, though, the cost. These run, $30 even on sale, but usually 34 to 42 bucks just for the Pi itself. And that's for the latest model, which is about 2.5 years old, the Raspberry Pi 3 Model B. And that's the one that I and everybody else recommends. But even then, once you get that, you still need to add more stuff, a keyboard, a mouse, the SD card, and a power source. It uses a micro USB connection. The problem is it needs at least 2.5 amps or more in order to be powered properly. But you have to be careful not to go too high. I use 3.0 on mine and it works just fine. But if you go pretty higher, if you go a little bit higher than that, then you may burn the board. So even before you hit that first keystroke, you have a little issue with the power source, and that's just part of the complexity and the charm of the Raspberry Pi. And setting up the user guide method on this is also extremely difficult. Because of that learning curve and the cost involved, it's easy to see why this finishes in last place. Coming in at number 7 is the Wi-Fi stick method, which here we're going to be focusing on the SanDisk Connect wireless stick more specifically. When people buy these Wi-Fi sticks, this is the one they buy, the SanDisk one. If you use a different brand, then of course your results are going to vary. There's a few pros here. It's small and portable. I would say it's tied probably with the next smallest thing on the list, which we'll get to in a little while. The performance is definitely there. Of course, it's not like a PC or the Raspberry Pi or anything, but for its size, it's very good and reliable and stable. I would say it's even better than the other little thing on the list that it's tied with. It's completely offline. The PS4 logs into it. Doesn't even need to be logged into your home network. You can choose whatever exploit you want, and it's very easy to use and set up. Maybe a 2 or a 3 at the absolute most on that 1 to 10 scale. Unfortunately, it carries a couple of heavy cons, one being the price. And, well, what it is. It's 18 to 24 bucks, and that's for the 16 gig version. It can go up to 256 gigs, but I'm going to tell you right now that those 16 gigs, really, that may be way overkill, because even if you use the largest of exploits, even if you store multiple exploits on this, you're only going to be using a fraction of those 16 gigs, and most will literally be left on the table and will go to waste. For that money, couple of bucks less, maybe even a couple bucks more in that price range, there's just a lot better stuff that you can get. Maybe even use something that has no cost whatsoever, because at the end of the day, this is just a hotspot that stores files, and that's really all it is. Yes, it's reliable and the performance is there and stuff. I can understand why people like it because it's small and portable, but there's just no versatility. You can't use the user guide method with it, and because of the cost, that's why it finishes at number 7. Coming in at number 6 is the router method, and this is a method a lot of people don't even know exists. I'm going to do something differently here, and I'm going to start with the cons first, because the main drawback here is a big one, and that is that not all routers will be able to do what we need them to do in order to host the exploit files for your PS4. I'm going to put a link down in the description that's going to bring you here over to PSX Hacks, and someone did a nice write-up using their router, which happens to be a Netgear Genie. Now this varies from brand to brand, from model to model, from variant to variant. For example, here this works for the Netgear Genie, but maybe another Netgear variant of this Genie or a different Netgear router altogether, this may not work. Anyway, most routers come with a USB port, at least one, and you can actually connect a USB storage device to that, and almost anything in your home network can get files from that USB storage. This would be great to host the exploit for the PS4, but there's a catch. You have to make sure that if yours has this capability, that it can do it via HTTP like it shows here. So here this person installed their USB storage device. They're going to share the files within their home network, and they have a choice of doing it either via HTTP or FTP. Most people's routers by default is FTP, and that may be the only option that you have, and it will not work because the PS4's browser, you need to type the HTTP address in it in order for it to go to it. It's not going to work via FTP. And so if your router can do this, then you will benefit from all of these pros, and they are some hefty ones for sure. You're gonna get that performance, the storage. You can choose whatever self-host exploit you want. More importantly, there's no cost. You already have your router right there. You can block the PS4 from going out of your home network using the firewall in your router. There's also other methods that you can use to do this. There is one other con, and that is the user guide method. Really, you can't use it here. There may be a way for you to set it up, but it may just very well be too complex. The other thing is I can't rate the difficulty level here because every router is different. Still though, it finished near the bottom of the list, but definitely worth checking out. And next up is the cache exploit method, and I'm going to spend a little bit longer on this one, maybe 3 minutes or so, because this one's a little bit debatable, controversial, whatever you want to call it, so we'll cover that here in a minute. Anyway, the pros with this is that when you run into an exploit that allows it to be installed into the cache folder of the PS4's browser, it of course will give you that performance, probably the best on the list, because it's running from within the PS4 itself. There's no cost here. It's pretty easy to set up because all you have to do is go to that exploit, whether it's an online one or an offline one, and you just press a button. Usually it says cache or cache offline or whatever, and that's pretty much it. It installs. It's the only method on this list that if you want to run it offline, once it installs, you don't need absolutely any external device, not even a router, nothing. Once it's installed, that's it. You're good to go. And it can be, you can use it either through the user guide or the PS4's browser. Okay, so the negatives here and what causes the, all the debates and controversy or whatnot is that this is running from the cache, which means it's, it's volatile. It's something that's, not permanent. The cache can be wiped. You can delete your history, delete the cookies or whatever, and then you lose either one page, causing you to lose that payload, or you may lose the whole entire exploit. Either way, if one of those two things happen, you have to install the whole entire exploit all over again. Then the question comes up, what happens when the cache starts getting full? And if you plan on modifying this yourself or customizing it yourself, it will definitely raise the level of difficulty much higher. That's because with 505, these payloads, became easier. They run off of like one HTML file. But when you want that payload to work through the cache, you have to do it, kind of old school, so to speak, the way it was done in 455 and 405, where you have to use, JS files and whatnot in conjunction with that payload in order for it to work. So because of these things, and because some people have experienced problems using the user guide method when it's in the cache and trying to run, let's say, menus or whatever, the PS4 either freezes or it shuts down or whatnot, and they have to use just the browser. So yeah, some people have experienced issues and whatnot. Because of that, because it's not, permanent, it's something that I can't recommend. Also, people like Modern Warfare, who's a developer, he has a tutorial here, and at the end of the video, he tells you, he prefers another method besides this, and other developers had said the same thing for that reason, because it's running from the cache. So with this one, you have to strongly weigh the cons with the pros. Coming up next is the DNS method, and this is the granddaddy of them all, the one that started it all. It's, of all the things on this list, the easiest one to set up and to use. You just go into your network settings in your PS4, type in that DNS address or addresses of wherever that exploit is being hosted and served, and you're done. That's it. There's no cost that's involved. You can use the user guide method, so if your PS4's browser hasn't been enabled, no problem, and no external device is needed. The negatives here, though, and one of the main ones, is that, of course, this is not an offline option. This can only be used online, meaning your PS4 has to go online. There's no way you can customize these exploits. So whatever the host puts up in that server, that's what you need to use. And sometimes they may not, update certain payloads or certain files on time or at all. Maybe it has certain things that you just find useless, or maybe things that you want to use, certain payloads or whatever, that they didn't put there. Also, performance and reliability can definitely be an issue here. The the traffic that the server is experiencing, the distance, how far it is away from you, even things like the weather and other stuff can affect the performance of the server and hence affect the performance of the exploit. A lot of people complain that they have to keep trying things over and over again in order to get them to work via the DNS method. For those reasons, it's a turnoff for some, but I could definitely understand why a lot of people would make this #1 on their list. The fact that you can use a user guide, there's no cost, and the absolute ease of use makes it a standout on this list. Next is the ESP8266 little mini Wi-Fi boards. These things are really small. I'm going to rate them right alongside with the SanDisk Wi-Fi stick as the smallest thing, external things on this list that you can use. It's very small. These are pretty much well made, very reliable, and pretty durable. Especially the ones that have the Lolin name on them here in small in the front. I don't know if you can see it, but it's also written in the back. You can run the user guide method through this. It's 100% offline because the PS4 connects to it since it's a little mini Wi-Fi hotspot. You don't need the internet or even a home network. They're easy to flash with a phone or a PC on a scale of 1 to 10, maybe a 2 or a 3 at most. And you can run whatever customized exploit you want as long as that exploit is designed for use with ESP8266 boards. Unfortunately, for as many pros it has as many cons. The first is being the cost. It's not that much. It's about $3 to $8 depending who you get it from and where it's being shipped from. It does require another device for it to be flashed, and I'm going to have to count that as a con because you still need that phone or that PC. It has extremely limited storage. These, for example, hold up to 4 megabytes and that's it. Now, I think there is variants of this that go up to like 32 megabytes and whatnot, but even still, if you want to run some of the bigger exploits that have all the extra features and all those menus and whatnot, then this isn't really going to work for that. And it's fine to run the smaller exploits, especially if you're going to use it just to initially, jailbreak, so to speak, the PS4 just to get that browser enabled. But after you do that, you'll realize once the browser has been enabled, you can pretty much use anything on this list. Especially there are things that, have more storage capacity, perform a little bit better, and just overall give you more versatility. Yet still the ESP finishes low because of its cost. It's so small, it is reliable, its ease of use, and because of the user guide method, definitely warrants it finishing pretty high on the list. And coming in at #2 is your PC, and obviously this is going to finish pretty high on the list. For most people, you already should have this, so I'm going to put it down as no cost. I know that you're not going to run out there and buy a PC solely for an exploit, so there's no cost involved. It will give you more than likely the best power, performance, and storage of anything else on this list. It works offline, meaning it just needs an intranet connection. So as long as your PS4 and it are connected in your home network, that's all you need. At no point in time to run the exploits, you need to be connected out of your home network in order to make it function. The self-hosting through your PC is very easy. I've done tutorials on it, and at most the difficulty level is like a 2 or a 3, and you have lots of ways to do it through your PC. There are a couple of cons, the main one being that you can set up this to use the user guide method. However, it can be, pretty complex depending. There's various ways to do it, but even the most common and easiest way requires you installing Python, fake DNS. There's some files you have to add. You need to install and run XAMPP or SHAMP, whatever it's called, and Apache, and it can definitely get more complicated. And also, of course, the size. Even if it's a small laptop, it's still probably the biggest and bulkiest thing on this list, hands down. Either way, because you probably already have this and the versatility of it, the fact that you can even make your own exploit from the ground up helps the PC finish strong. And coming in at #1, no surprise, it's your phone or your smart devices. When it comes to power, performance, and storage, this can easily be the best thing on this list for all three, except the PC. But if you don't plan on using your PC or just don't have one, then yes, it can be the best thing on this list for all three of those. There's no cost. You already have one. It works offline. All you need to do is connect your PS4 to it via your home network, and that's it. So it's an intranet connection, but to run the exploit, you don't need an internet connection at any time. Running the exploits on it is very easy. You can set it up. I've already done a video on it, maybe a 2 or a 3 on that 1 to 10 scale at the absolute most. You have lots of choices and different ways to run your exploits on the phone. It's portable. You already carry it with you everywhere, and you can run whatever exploit you want. You can even customize your exploits to the point where you can mess with some of the files and stuff. Of course, you'll have to install different apps and whatnot to be able to do that on the phone, but you can do it. The other reason why it finishes at number 1 is because, well, there's hardly no cons at all. Just one that I can think of, although it's kind of a juicy one. You can't run the user guide method on it. Now, technically, there is a way you can, but it's way too complex. It starts with you having to have your phone rooted, and that in itself may be a no-go or just too complicated for people. So we'll just leave it at that. And you can always just run the DNS method, for example, just one time, so you can enable that PS4 web browser, and then once you've done that, you don't have to do it anymore, and then you can come and start using your phone. Anyway, because of all of these pros and how they heavily outweigh the one con, and because there's so many of them, it's easy to see why I recommend the phone or smart devices as the best way to run exploits for your PS4. And that's it, guys. Thanks for watching the video. Yeah, I know it was pretty long, but I told you we had a lot to cover. Hopefully when you are making a decision about which one of all these different methods to try out or consider, this video helped you out. Don't forget to thumbs up and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one.